that we have inside of another module on board the station. They should be heading over to the Destiny module, just basically two doors down from Dragon now. And they'll compare that, and then once everything looks good, teams expect to wait about half an hour, and then they'll start mixing the air between Dragon and the International Space Station. Our zero-G indicator getting a little bump there.
He is now free to move about the cabin.
And again, if you're just now joining us, the hatch is open inside of the Dragon spacecraft. Right now, two of the crew members from Expedition 58 are inside, just taking some atmospheric readings. It's Oleg Kononenko from the Russian Space Agency, Roscosmos, and David St. Jacques from the Canadian Space Agency. Once they get what they need, they'll move back outside, compare the results to some readings just from another module on board the station. You can actually see one of them. So the cargo that Dragon delivered is just underneath the seats. There's about 400 pounds, a little over 400 pounds in total.
You can see them inspecting some of those cargo bags down there.
Oh. Can you tell we're in microgravity?
It's been indicated.
All right, again, if you're just now tuning in, you're seeing human beings inside of the Crew Dragon spacecraft. It's David St. Jacques and Oleg Kononenko from Expedition 58. They're already moving some of the cargo around. They're in there taking some atmospheric readings. That hatch was opened at 5:07 a.m. Pacific, 8:07 a.m. Eastern, while the station was flying just about 255 statute miles over the northern Atlantic. Getting our split screen view back. So the one on the left, that camera is inside of Dragon. That camera on the right is inside of Node 2, looking down the pressurized mating adapter into the Dragon spacecraft. Hatch open.
That white box moving around inside the international docking adapter right there is one of the pieces of cargo that Dragon took up. As Dan said, that cargo is stored down below the crew area, below where the seats are. And it looks like they are already transferring some of that cargo out. A while ago, we talked about the differences between docking and berthing. One of the big advantages of docking, obviously, is that it's autonomous and the spacecraft itself can initiate and complete the process. But the hatch size is a lot smaller because of those necessary docking equipment. They're all around the edge of the hatch.
Yeah, you can actually get a really easy comparison with this view. So obviously the docking hatch is that small circle you see way in the foreground. This square shape that you can see Anne McClain just at on the screen on the right, that is a common berthing mechanism. So when the cargo dragons arrive, that's what they ultimately get bolted to. So you can see just kind of how much more clearance that can give a vehicle, but that does require you to actually bolt or attach and then bolt the spacecraft to that mechanism. You can't just fly in and dock like Dragon did earlier this morning.
That's why it's important to have a healthy ecosystem of spacecraft that are capable of visiting the space station to transport both humans and cargo of various sizes.
And that's also why we use the pressurized mating adapter. That's in some of the external views you've seen a large black structure that the Dragon is docked to, and that's essentially to turn a square hole into a circular hole. And that just allows you to change the type of docking adapter that you're able to put on there. It looks like we got some cargo coming out.
I know I've said it before, but hard to believe that thing was sitting on top of a Falcon 9 only 27 hours ago. And now they're transferring cargo out of the top hatch.
Station Houston on 2, and at this time we recommend that you set up the detectors, and David can help Oleg with the sample as needed.
Looks like they're already digging into some of that cargo that was brought up by the Crew Dragon.
Yeah, it looks like David St. Jacques there, close up to the camera on the right side. He's right now back in Node 2, the Harmony module, along with Anne McClain. Meanwhile, Oleg Kononenko still inside Crew Dragon. We should see him pop out in a little bit as soon as he's done getting that air sample.
And there he comes.
And moving back out.
Again, keeping that hatch open as the air won't readily mix by itself and without any gravity to help convection along.
Crew getting a chance to take a couple of photos is they're surely going to want to commemorate the moment too.
It's a little selfie action. Can't help that. I'd be doing the same thing.
All right, so the hatchway open again. It's going to take a little while for them to just do final ratings on all of the samples, and then the folks on the ground, actually over in Mission Control.
Houston Station, step 9.4. The detector CTV is retrieved. All crew are out of Dragon. We're currently in lab forward. Copy.
And so it sounds like the crew now back in the Destiny laboratory. You heard Anne McClain call down there in lab forward. That's the larger laboratory module on board the station. That's where a lot of the US-based experiments are housed. But they're going to go back there and now compare the air samples that they took inside of Dragon with just the background ones that they're able to get there in Destiny. And we're expecting it to take about 30 minutes or so. until the teams on the ground are able to look through all the data, and then they get the go to actually begin the mixing of the atmosphere between the Dragon spacecraft and the International Space Station. Because as Tom and I both said, that doesn't just happen. Just because the hatch is open, the air inside of Dragon is not readily flowing inside of the station until we actually turn on some fans that make that process work. And that's just one of those quirks of living in microgravity. You have to actively move the atmosphere around inside.
Station Houston on 2 for Epcot timing. Want to let you know that we are tracking that they will have at least another 5 minutes remaining on them.
All right, so again, the crew is out of the hatch, and again, that hatch opened at 5:07 a.m. Pacific, 8:07 a.m. Eastern Time, with Station and Dragon docked together, flying just about 255 statute miles over the northern Atlantic. The crew now going and taking a few more samples, and then that gets downlinked in data to the ground, who then get a chance to look at it, and then they'll move forward with actually mixing all that air between Dragon and Station. And then shortly after that, we are expecting the crew to gather. And
Station from the lab, both readings indicate 0. We are looking at serial number 1001 and 1002.
We copy.
You're hearing the crew members relay down the results of those analyses to the ground controllers.
And Ann, in step 10.3, your max allowable will be 125.
Copy 125.
Houston Station, step 11.2, ready for re-ingress.
And you are go.
all right, so we're continuing to move through all of the procedures to get all these atmospheric readings, and we should see Anne McLean, I believe, making her way down now. And she's back there in node 2 at the hatchway. One of our other crew members now back inside of Dragon. There are a couple of additional atmospheric detectors that were flown on the vehicle. And so per their procedures, they're expecting this to take about 3 minutes for those detectors to finish, and then that next step will be completed.
As Dan and I always say, slow and steady wins the race when it comes to bringing a new vehicle, or any vehicle really, to the International Space Station. All these tests are part of the validation of this first flight and the Crew Dragon capsule. And so right now those atmospheric readings are taking help to prove that the air inside Dragon 2 is safe after its ascent. All part of this prove-out process of this new vehicle for its maiden launch.
That's right. Demo 1, an appropriate name, as it is a demonstration, as we've talked about over the last couple of days and in briefings and in all of our live shows. This is a demonstration because we need to kind of put the vehicle through the paces, make sure we catch anything and shake out all the kinks, because the next flight is the one, as Kirk Shireman said, for record. That's the one where we're going to have crew members on board of Dragon. It's going to be 2 NASA astronauts, Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken, who were kind enough to stop by for a little while earlier. They've been here in Hawthorne watching all the operations unfold. They actually hopped on a flight. They were in Florida for the launch, got over here to watch everything unfold, and believe they should be back here to actually watch all of the splashdown operations a little bit later this week. Again, Dragon scheduled to stay docked for about 5 days, ultimately coming home for a splashdown on, I believe it's Thursday night, Friday morning, depending on where you are in the world. So a pretty quick mission, but a very important mission to get in the books. This, the first flight of the commercial crew program to the International Space Station. So a really big milestone, obviously, and something that's been a lot of years coming, but everything gone very smoothly so far with this mission. Vehicle docked, the hatch open, the crew doing a couple of final readings, and then Dragon will pretty much be ready to be fully integrated into the International Space Station. Ripley continuing to look very stoic in her seated position. And for those who didn't catch the launch or earlier in our webcast this morning, that is not a person inside of that suit. That is an anthropomorphic, I forget the full acronym, but it's essentially a test dummy that's outfitted with test device, that's outfitted with a number of sensors just to measure all of the different loads that a crew member in that seated position would be exposed to. There's also a microphone around the device's ears. So
Station on 2, all readings inside of Dragon are 0, crew is back in the lab.
Copy that. You guys are goaded off masks, and just remember to remain aft of node 2, and we are going to start our 36-minute timer now for the atmosphere mixing. Okay.
All right, so that's great news. Reporting everything looking good inside of Dragon. And so now the teams on the ground are going to flip the switch, and it's going to be time for the atmosphere in Dragon to start getting mixed with that of the International Space Station. They said there's going to be a 36-minute timer, so they are expecting about 36 minutes or so for this process to kind of take its course and for Dragon to get fully integrated with the station atmosphere. So another milestone checked off.
I'd like to see that 0G indicator now floating up as the air starts mixing. Maybe give it a little more freedom to move around. So with that, we're going to take a little break here while the crew continues all their checks about Dragon. Right now, everything is looking great. The crew is given the order to doff their masks. It sounds like the atmosphere is good to go and good to mix. We are going to come back when they're ready to share a few words, so stay with us, and we'll be back later when the crew is ready to celebrate a docking gone well.
Station Houston on 2. Our timers for mixing the air have expired. Your go for part 3 at your convenience.
Copy, thank you.